Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. First up, we're once again with our good friend Old Donyo at the Old Donyo Lodge in Kenya. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, if it's anything like this, it's going to be a wonderful day. So you're going to have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down to have a drink and cool off. Per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the WildEarth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. These two guys were here like the hanging area. And what a privilege for us. I've been noticing that one ton has really been flicking his trunk around a lot in comparison to the other individuals. I wonder what's up. He's wandering right into the water now. What magnificent beasts. This is absolutely amazing. So Catherine, first up, saying, hello Ralph, what a start. Absolutely. Always stunning and a real privilege to be in the presence of such big, magnificent beasts. Some of the last left of the real true big tuskers, and nice to see them doing well. See, I'm wondering, like, it's a little bit similar to a basset hound dog that I've got, that it's getting a little bit older now. And he does a lot of nose licking. I think it's due to the old age. Maybe he's got a bit of sinus. I'm just wondering why that trunk keeps flicking around a lot. Almost like his nose is running. And Darcy Miller, welcome aboard once again and saying, hi Ralph, it's great to see one ton. It's always fascinating and lovely to be in his presence. Now, I've been trying to do some research and finding out the history of this particular elephant called one ton. And I found on the Big Life Foundation Facebook page, they're speaking of who is Wantan? And apparently he appeared from nowhere, an elephant without a history. It was 1996 when this special animal was first spotted in the Chulu Hills by Richard Bonham, Big Life's co-founder and director of operations. A lot has changed in the 25 years since, and elephants been through hell. Poaching swept the continent, cutting the East African elephant population in half in 10 years alone, contributing to a 50% decline in Africa's savanna elephant population in the last 60 years. Big Life protected Wantan through the worst of this, now estimated to be about 50 years old. Initially quite shy, over time he has grown to trust Richard and the Big Life Rangers and is now spotted regularly. He's not actually from Amboseli, but nearby in Tsavo. And he's grown into something rare and special, an elephant with tusks so big that they sweep the ground. There are only a handful of them left. And so this obviously being a very important animal to protect. It's quite interesting that nobody really knows his history. Meru continue on saying that though Wantan has survived to this point in his life, he continues to face a number of threats, reflected in the recent change of the status of his species from vulnerable to endangered by the IUCN. Big Life is working to counter these. Communities protect Wantan and his kind from poachers. We've built crop protection fences to help in preventing conflict with the local community. We work with local partners to serve important habitats and keep migratory corridors like the Kimana Wildlife Corridor open for wildlife to move safely around the ecosystem. We are grateful to everyone involved, including both our partners and supporters the world over, for helping to keep the greater Amboseli ecosystem safe and all the elephants and the rest of the wildlife that live here. So it looks like these big tuskers are done now, but it seems there may be a bird of prey in this dead tree just in front of the umbrella thorn. Now, the question is, who is that? Get a closer look on it. Looks like there's no feathers on the legs. Do have a bit of a mottled chest area. wasn't a great view on it because of the sort of silhouette and the real grey lighting that we have. A bit of a better view. If anybody has any ideas, send it through. I'll give you a bit of a chance before I let you know. Right, so we have changed of place and we've headed on over to Etosha and the Okaukuejo in Namibia, and very different circumstances here. Not a cloud in the sky. The sun is out and it looks like the easterly wind is blowing. So it'll be a nice, warm winter's day here in Etosha. Earlier on, there were quite a number of springbok, gemsbok and zebra that were here having a drink on this turnstile of wildlife that really comes through at this particular waterhole. Okay, so we had a bit of a dropout in the camera at Old Donyo, but it seems to have been sorted out. So let's head on back there. So obviously, when you're looking at a bird, we always look at the general impression of shape and size. This goes for bird identification, grasses, trees, etc., and general wildlife. So it does then get you into a specific range. So looking at this bird, you can see how it stands pretty upright. And the first thing you would have noticed when we first saw it, that there was no feathers on the legs. Which would take it away from your sort of true eagles, because they all have feathers all the way down to their toes, and putting us in sort of the harriers, the harrier hawks, the snake eagles. And so that's the area that you would be checking in your bird identification book. And then you're looking at a little bit more of the characteristics. You can see a nice white chest with blotches and almost like a bit of an open tie. It's not a bib because it doesn't meet in the middle. You've got that white stripe going down there that breaks up the black lines on the side. So that's obviously interesting. Then you would look closer at the bill color and the eyes. It's a little bit difficult here, but you can definitely see the top of the bill is black. I'm not sure if there's another color there, but these are all giving us some characteristics to really get towards our answer. There we can see nice and clear the legs are yellow, so that would be another feature that could lead us to our answer. Distribution would obviously be a big factor. Although they're birds and they have wings, they sometimes can be outside of their range. So generally though, it does lead you or help you to identify a specific species. So for me, I'm going for a buzzard, and I think there's a couple like sort of one being an auger buzzard, the other being a forest buzzard. I'm not 100% sure between the two, but they for me are the closest with this particular coloration. If I had to put my house on it, I'll probably go with the forest buzzard. So Catherine was saying, my guess is a western banded snake eagle. It's a good call, Catherine. But for me, all of the snake eagles have quite a boxy head, and this is always what leads me to think of a snake eagle. And the western banded snake eagle, I'm not sure. We can't see too much of the real colors there up just above the legs, because with the western banded snake eagle, it's got a lot of bands there on that area just above the legs, and it doesn't look like that for me, as well as this mottling that's further up, not really present as much on a banded snake eagle. So I'm definitely in the buzzards, and my closest for now is a forest buzzard. A lot of the raptors do like using this tree, as with a lot of dead trees, especially the likes of leadwoods. They do create lovely perching sites where they can also hunt from. That sounds like a classist cuckoo. And sometimes in this part of Africa, the cuckoos don't necessarily migrate because the conditions remain throughout the year, being very tropical. But sometimes it could also be a mimicat that's calling like a cuckoo. That definitely sounds like one. Now, Queenie was asking, does the tree that a bird is in help you ID which bird it is? Generally not, Queenie. Sometimes, because little birds do sort of prefer thorny trees, etc., to nest in. But when you're looking at a raptor like this, we've had African hawk eagle, African harrier hawk. We've had a brown snake eagle. And this here, then, for me, one of the buzzards, I think it could even be a female auger buzzard or a forest buzzard. I think it's one of those. But definitely a new one out of the other species. And I wouldn't be able to tell you which, as a result of which tree it's sitting in. It's just a lovely perch for them. And so there are specific trees that when they die, they don't degrade as quickly. And so the likes of leadwoods would be perfect, especially for nice big vultures, etc. They really like them. And they stay there for so many years because of the density of the wood. So it becomes then a favorite perching spot. It's also nice and close to the water, so they can also sort of survey if they do want to come down for a drink and wait for a quiet moment. But there can also be a lot of birds, obviously, that are coming in to drink too. So just like the lions, they can often use a waterhole as a hunt area with all the animals coming to drink. It does make it a bit easier for them. Now, Asbo has a question for us. Welcome aboard once again, Asbo, saying, hi, Ralph. The mosquito-borne Usutu virus is now in the UK and devastating our blackbirds. London is particularly affected. As it originated in South Africa, I was hoping you could tell us about it. So, I'm no virologist or epidemiologist either. I just love to get into these diseases and sicknesses and find out what they are and how they affect us, etc. A lot of the time, I have found that, folks do, or scientists, researchers, vets, doctors, they do pick up these viruses in places and then obviously assume that they originate there. But with this kind of avian flu, that it is linked to, and I'll get into the details. They've got wings, and so they can move just like us as humans with airplanes, and so it can get mixed up around the world before we realize, and then where we find it sometimes confuses where it actually originated from. Regardless of that, the Usutu virus, and this is coming from Science Direct, which is a website that I do look into quite regularly as well, with them having a lot of research papers on this kind of diseases. The Usutu virus, or USUV, is a mosquito-borne flavivirus. It will be non-pathogenic in Africa. It's been emerging in birds across southern and central Europe since 2001. So USUV causes large outbreaks of severe neurological disease, especially in blackbirds, you say, Asbo. And symptomatic human cases are rare, but infection may cause life-threatening neurological disease. Usuv is maintained in an enzootic cycle involving ornithophilic mosquitoes and birds. So obviously mosquitoes that bite birds. And in Africa, the vector and host species are the Culex neve mosquitoes and hornbills, little green bulls, and curricane thrushes. In Europe, the Culex pipiens and blackbirds are the primary hosts. So humans and horses are incidental hosts. Since USUV and WNV have overlapping ranges and they cause similar disease in birds, humans, and horses and are antigenically similar, USUV-related neurological disease may be underdiagnosed. USUV may have a much larger range and a higher incidence in humans than is known. Just as disease severity increased in birds, it may also become more common and pathogenic in humans. And the Usutu virus is serologically closely related to the Japanese encephalitis and West Nile viruses. First recognized in Natal, South Africa, in 1959, and then was isolated from the CX neve in the tropical coastal lowland. The virus was isolated only once from a patient in the Central African Republic who had fever and rash. It was recovered on multiple occasions from mosquitoes and from birds. It was once from a rodent. The Usutu virus is widely distributed in Africa and has been isolated from mosquitoes or birds in Uganda, Cameroon, Senegal, and Nigeria. During the summer of 2001 in Austria, birds were found dead and dying. The virus was isolated from the birds, was identified by a reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction. That's a mouthful. As a Usutu virus, and the nucleic acid similarity was 97%. So no disease was recognized. And the finding strengthens the case for birds as part of the reservoir for Usutu virus and also favors the idea that there may be continental movement of the virus. I think now it's quite obvious because these studies were sort of around 2001, 2002. And with the evolution of viruses and the movements of birds, I think it's quite possible with the movements that it's a little bit more endemic around Europe and Africa than we think. But with that and the changing of viruses, our immunosystems also adapt to that. You need the virus first for your body to create the white blood cells and fighting back. So there's constantly new viruses that are evolving, and so all the animals and the humans included obviously evolve protection systems resulting from that as well. As we get the superb starling coming in here, I just wanted, I am an amateur mycologist, sort of delve into terms of growing out cultures on petri dishes, etc. And it is absolutely amazing. If you just leave a petri in open air for a couple of seconds, it literally grows on those plates. It's incredible. And this was obviously how penicillin was found, with an open petri in a window. And a spore of a penicillin literally landed on the plate, and it was shown to sort of fight against a lot of virus and bacteria, and so that was the origins of it, just literally found by chance with an open petri dish. But it just shows the amount of virus and bacteria that is constantly floating around each and every single individual organism. And the fight to survive against it is constantly there as well. Beautiful sight of these zebra. Right, so lovely to see these zebra coming in, but I think it's time to change of place and let's go to the Greater Kruger Park in South Africa and Rosie's Pan. Where the elephants, or a couple of them at least, have come in for a drink. Wonderful. And we saw a leopard here yesterday. What a sight. It was very brief, but nonetheless. So this one in the foreground, sticking its ears out, trying to make itself look bigger. Is he going to go and have a little bit of a rough and tumble with this other elephant? So Spencer was asking, do you know if elephants pass on any diseases to each other or other herbivores? So the one that are of most importance, Spencer, is just like humans, elephants get the herpes virus, and they do pass that on to other individuals within the herds as well. I'm not sure that they do really pass it on to other herbivores, but the three major passable diseases or contagious diseases that they may pass on to other herbivores would be foot and mouth disease, as well as tuberculosis, and so those three, they could, sort of pass that on between them. Looks like two young bulls just getting to know each other. Maybe they have been moving together, but there's always fun and games between the young bulls, and even when they get older, like a bit of rough and tough. There's an impala moving through in the background there. A couple of them. Here comes a ram. Getting in nice up and close and personal, this chap. I think its tusk and its skin with its trunk there. So Drew was asking, when male elephants are still in the natal herd system, do they form bonds with each other? Yeah, they do, Drew. It's mainly sort of wrestling partners, and as they get older, they start playing rougher and rougher with each other, and that's sort of part of the reason that they do get pushed out of the herd a bit onto the outskirts, because the females with the babies get irritated because they're too boisterous and told off, and so they spend their time wrestling and pushing and shoving and head butting each other and just having a real go. As with young boys within humans, playing rugby and getting rough, and it's sort of part and parcel of the species and of the gender as well. So very similar in elephants, and slowly but surely they just become too rough, and the herd then has enough of them, and they really then need to stay on the outskirts, and then they slowly start leaving the herd altogether. And very often those bonds that would have formed between them, well, then they move off in a little. But obviously, then coming into must is when they really start fighting with each other, and then there might be a little bit of a split up of the group. But then once the levels of testosterone return to normal levels, they may then come back and be accepted as a normal person once again. So it looks like they too may have had enough here at the water's edge. Slowly moving off. So asking, do young female elephants ever get kicked out, I wonder? I would say that I would never say never, Joanne, but it is very unusual for female elephants to get kicked out of a herd. It's generally once they get a bit older and more experienced and they don't agreement with the leadership group or the matriarch that you have breakaways, but generally the females pretty much always stay with their natal herd, right to it and beyond. Okay, so now that it's gone quiet here, I think we've changed, and this time let's go to the Madikwe Game Reserve in Tau. Where we've got some more stripes. It seems like there was a bit of fighting going on between them. Here, the little blue waxbills, a grey bird so far, and the tin spot batters. So some blue wildebeest joined by a warthog. I think there's a little bit of boots there maybe. So you see zebra, even with their white and black stripes, you'd think they stand out a lot in the bush. But look at that, just one line of brush, and they are almost invisible within there. And you can, obviously now that they break cover, you see them quite clearly. But just behind one bush, and their body outlines are broken up, and it's quite difficult to make out individuals, and they almost disappear. Of course, these wildebeest lying down, taking a bit of a rest, but also ruminating at the same time. Very important part of their day, getting through that digestive process. So Kylie asking a very pertinent question: how do wildebeest and zebra benefit from staying with each other and often being seen in each other's company? So you would think not much would, benefit, but in fact there's actually a number of advantages. First and foremost, there's more eyes and ears, so safety in numbers. You've got less chance if there's more of you, and so they lessen their chances of getting eaten, especially by lions, who are their primary predators. So then they've got different digestive systems, and they eat slightly different food as well. The zebra are bulk grazers, so they're not selective in the grass that they feed on, and they also sort of feed a lot, and they're hindgut fermenters. So the blue wildebeest are more selective grazers, and they prefer sort of the grass closer down to the soil, almost further down. And so it's literally like a preparation of the graze for the wildebeest, and that's why you often find not so much zebra following wildebeest, more so wildebeest following zebra, because it's more so to their advantage than the other way around. But they do still both benefit from additional numbers and the eyes and the ears. But then on the wildebeest side, they get their food prepared for them by this as well. Okay, so another nice stop in here at Tau, as always, but I think place again, and this time let's go to KwaZulu-Natal. I hope the hurricanes left, and Tembe Elephant Park. I said hurricane, they actually had a tornado in these parts a couple of days ago, which was incredible to see. I've only seen videos of it. Absolutely intense, and there's lots of flooding in these parts coming now too, so wish all the best for the people and the wildlife in the area. Sun's out for now, but there's another wave on its way. And the first one was quite deadly. So let's hope it's not too bad. Second round. So that's a shame. The elephants seem to have left us here. That's all right. We'll keep an eye on it, and we'll come back if any of them return, I'm sure. But for now, I think let's head back to Kenya and Old Donyo. With one sight of these stripes coming in for a drink once again. We've got the oxpeckers also joining them, having a bit of a bath while they're at it. And a Maasai or two giraffe in the background. Even now, the giraffe being nervous, waiting its turn. Can hear some voices. There may be some of the rangers or even cattle herders that are moving through these. Obviously, what's concerning these animals. So it just goes to show as well how sort of scared giraffe and wildlife in general is, especially of humans on foot. It's crazy because they can very often smell you in a vehicle and they won't run off. But as soon as they see you and standing on two legs, it's an immediate reaction that they become stressed and they normally run away. It's also a youngster. You can see the lovely, fluffy sort of tufts at the top of the ossicones, or the So switched on of place with a little bit of difficulties there. But nonetheless, back to Etosha, the great white place at Okaukuejo. What a sight that is now. Lots of gemsbok coming in for a drink. Looks like blue wildebeest as well. Getting in much closer in on them. Beautiful antelope, the gemsbok are. So Grayson asking, do the hooves of Gemsbok click like those of Eland? No, they don't, Grayson. They don't really overlap each other in the front. They're not quite as big as an eland, which is their tracks are very similar to that of buffalo, being much heavier animals. You know, the big bulls can be up to about 800 kilograms. So comparable in weight to buffalo, whereas the Gemsbok quite a lot smaller. Their tracks has got more of a kind of a heart shape than the more rounded track of an impala, and they don't have those little overlaps in the front that allow the click. In fact, very often in the sand, they actually splay quite wide, and so there's no real chance of them clicking. I'm sure there can be, just randomly, but I've never heard any noise coming from the feet of oryx ever. So I'm pretty sure they can't really click without that overlap. So Spaz Lankov asking, how do we tell females from male Gemsbok from each other? It's not easy, Spaz. The females just have slightly thinner and shorter horns, not quite as broad as the males. And the males, obviously, just halfway up their stomachs, you can see the little penis sheath or skin flap. And so you've got to look quite close on them. It's quite similar with zebra, for instance. With springbok, slightly easier because those horns are, the difference between the male and female is quite a lot in terms of the thickness of the horns of the males. More like your thumbs in thickness if you put them next to each other versus the pinkies if you put your pinky of the females. But you could do the same for the oryx or the Gemsbok as well. But you'd have to look closely, and it's not as distinct as in the springboks. But both male and female have horns, as with the springbok, as with the wildebeest. And so you've got to look at more detail. And as they don't show real sexual dimorphism. Okay, nice stop in here in Etosha in Namibia. But let's change of place and let's head back to Kenya and Old Donyo. Aha! Surprise, surprise. We've got another bird of prey here. Look at the legs. Now, those have got feathers all the way down their legs. So it's not the same species that we were looking at previously. Definitely a buzzard. Those yellow legs, between auger and forest buzzard, I would say. I'm leaning now more so towards auger buzzard. But now, who are these chaps? These are often and most likely seen in pairs and generally hunt together as well. So this is quite an average sighting of this particular species. But I'd like to know if anybody knows who this is. We can see in the background there's some eland we haven't seen for a while. Bill, Myrtle Beach, saying it's the African hawk eagle. Spot on, Bill. That is the one. So the African hawk eagle. We've seen one here previously, but I haven't seen a pair like this. So you see coming in for a little bit of a bath. Just lovely. And you hear those oxpeckers now. They might be sitting on these eland. There might be some other animals coming in. Might chase off these African hawk eagles. There's a bit of shade now. It seems to be drifting on over this bird. I wonder if it's a giraffe. Indeed, a giraffe, and even with the birds being almost 100 times smaller than them, they're not scared at all. Something else big flying through in the background. I think the eland's even a bit nervous of the hawk. Only making its way in now. Oh, ruffling of the feathers, even chased the giraffe off. Can you believe it? Now that's what you call standing your ground. And as I say that, off he flies. The other one's still sticking about. So Mindy Tillapore asks, do you think animals' fear of humans is learned, instinctual, or both? I think the overriding feature in it is instinct, but I think it is learned from, the babies passing it on or getting it from the adults and their behavior towards humans. As soon as they, learn that from the adults, it becomes even a bigger part of their instinct. But I think it's huge, the instinctive side. But we have shown that, through habituation, they can, to some degree, lose the fear of humans. In some cases, they then start associating humans with food, which is also learned, because I think that overrides their instinct. But the benefits that they're getting starts to make them even press that behavior even more. So it's an interesting one, but I think instinctually that animal on two legs, as we feel when we see a snake or a spider or a shark or a lion or an elephant, you have that instinctual fear that makes you be careful, at least, and sometimes be very scared. But you can then also learn that in some instances there's nothing really about. But I still think that instinct is the biggest feature in these instances. This giraffe really looks like a Christmas tree, with all the lights going up the neck. Very well are the oxpeckers. It's crazy how these two African hawk eagles are dominating waterhole now. Maybe there's still a bit of nervousness around from the obvious predators that moved through. At least the sun's come out a little bit now, putting some more light on the subjects. So a bit closer up on the African hawk eagle. Beautiful markings. The Dark Main Lover was saying, good afternoon, Ralph, and thank you for hosting live at the Waterhole. You're very welcome, Dark Main Lover, and lovely to have you on board once again. There we go. Now the bird at least getting in. Bathe. Now, Lorraine was asking, what diseases can birds get? There's not too many that they get, Lorraine, but it's mostly virus. And we do know about an influenza. They had a very big outbreak in 2017 in South Africa, especially amongst the seabirds. And there was also some endangered species that were affected. The African penguins, Cape cormorants, and Cape gannets. However, the outbreak primarily impacted swift terns. But 2017 in South Africa was the devastating outbreak of deadly, highly pathogenic avian influenza, killed numerous endangered and such widespread mortality in wild birds has not been seen in the country since the avian influenza outbreak in commons in 1961. And this is according to San Parks. So I think we have flare-ups of it every now and then. And that's generally, I think, the bigger part of the disease that they do get. So Miranda is asking, what determines whether birds are ground or tree nesters? Miranda, it's generally, and I say this because there's always exceptions to the rules, it's generally down to their foot structure. So the perching birds that have, the toe at the back that enables them to be able to clutch onto a branch and perch on it, they generally are that will build nests, but we do still have some perching birds that even nest on the ground. So as I say, always those exceptions. But generally the ground birds, they can't really balance on a tree. So they would then obviously find it difficult. Again, there's also exceptions. And you do then find the sort of raptors and the eagles, etc. They will obviously build on a big flat surface on the top of a tree or on a cliff face. But it's all down through the evolutionary adaptations of where they prefer to live. Some move between. You think of the likes of secretary birds that spend a lot of time on the ground hunting, but then will nest up in a tree. Generally, the rest of the raptors would also nest up in the tree, but don't spend much time on the ground. So then you also have the likes of guinea fowl that will perch trees and roost in trees at night, but they'll nest on the ground. So it's rather interesting. But you can always remember that you will have exceptions in the wild because they don't really conform to the boxes that we like to put them in. But yeah, I would say the overriding factor is their foot structure and how we are able to perch in a tree and be able to stay up there. So if you don't have that back toe, it makes it rather difficult, and you're going to stumble around, fall around in the tree. And if you do have that toe at the back, you're also more ungainly on the ground. So you're then susceptible to attacked by predators. So it goes both ways. Now, Sparko was also saying that those oxpeckers must be very annoying. I think they are, definitely, because you can see them trying to get rid of them, shaking their heads, trying to chase them off. But I think sometimes it must be quite nice as well. A little bit of a back tickle, scratch. But, especially when they get up inside their ears and around their mouth, I think is when they're most annoying. Okay, so always lovely to stop in Old Donyo, but let's change and heading back to Madikwe and Tau. Still lots of stripes around. There's a bit of a youngster there, and then all the waterfowl as well. From, looks like spoonbill, African spoonbill. I think there's some yellow-billed ducks, maybe some red-billed teals. You see the Egyptian geese there in the background. That's the red-knobbed coot. Yeah, so that tiny bird on the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side, I think that's a three-banded plover. Alrighty, so just the unspeakable there. So let's change of place and let's head up to Okaukuejo in Namibia. Where the elephants are back. Fantastic. Joined by lots and lots of zebra as well. So this is just what I'm saying about this real turbine and constant replacement of animals here. They just keep coming. As groups leave, you just wait a little while and it falls up once again, especially at this time of the year. couple of tiny little babies within this herd, but it looks like they might slowly be moving off along the yellow brick road, as I call it, maybe leaving this bull. Is it a bull? No, I don't think it is. It's a cow and a youngster. So they just seem a little bit slower than the rest, but I'm sure it won't be long and they'll be joining them. Yeah, just as I thought, joining up with the rest of the herd. So Sarah saying or asking, what would you say is unique about elephants? Sarah, I'd say something definitely pretty unique is definitely the trunk, the evolved nose, and the thousands of muscles that they have within it. I think it's an incredible organ, and I don't see any other animals with very similar body parts as well, but and their sheer size too, which is completely unique. The size of their ears or the ear flaps. I think not many animals comparative to that either. And also the intelligence, which is not entirely unique, but I think that level of intelligence is quite unique within the African land mammals. So I think those features definitely for me the uniqueness of an elephant. Can you hear the zebra calling there? Not everybody knows what zebra sound like. It's a little bit more like a donkey sound than horses, but unique all the same. So Vicky asking, is it the same zebra species found all over Africa? Well, this is the most common of all and the most widely distributed, being the Burchell's zebra. But we do have a range of other zebra as well. Here in Etosha, you also get the Hartman's mountain zebra, but you don't see them at this waterhole. Well, I never have, and I don't know any records of them being here. They are in the direction that the camera is looking now, closer to a dolomite rocky outcrop. As the name suggests, they do prefer to be in and around mountainous areas. And same with the Cape Mountain zebra that you find in South Africa. But then we also get the Grevy's zebra further up north and into East Africa as well. Slowly but surely, all those elephants now are walking off into the distance and towards the tree line and areas where there's a lot more food for them. Okay, now that they've disappeared, or just about, I think we'll do the same, and let's go back to Old Donyo. Our African hawk eagles are still having a swim, a little bath in the water. There's a Maasai giraffe in the shade of that umbrella thorn. He's having a flap around in the water as well, much like a dog shaking while it's still in the water. So Edna asking, what do these birds typically feed on here? And these being the African hawk eagles, they have quite a varied diet. They prey upon other birds. That's why you're actually not seeing any birds coming down while they're here. But careful, because They know the dangers, but they can even feed on quite large ones, including horns and other game birds. They feed on smaller birds and even mammals such as hares or dik-diks, squirrels, monkeys, mongoose. So this is the reason why a lot of the little squirrels and mongoose and so on, they don't hang about. They're very quick to stick into the thicker brush. Um, they'll also take reptiles and even sometimes insects, the likes of the termite alates is one of their favorites, lots of birds' favorites. And lots of birds will feed when you have those sort of bursts of alates. So opportunistic feeders and not really a specialist at all. Yeah, pearl-spotted owlet calling off there in the distance once again. It looks like he's had a really good old wash and a nice cool off. Maybe he'll take to flight soon. So just as I thought, off goes the African hawk eagle. You might slowly start to see more birds coming in now as a result of them leaving and the danger subsiding. You know, maybe even the giraffe as well. He was also scared of them for some reason. Now, this is when the giraffe do get irritated. You see that oxpecker all around the mouth. You see it's shaking its head, trying to get rid of it. So Mike asking, is it coincidence that they fly off almost at the same time? Not really, Mike. They do really stick together. That's probably a pair. And they hunt together. And very often when you see them thermaling in the sky, it's one of the ways that we actually very quickly identify that it's African hawk eagles. Because if it's a pair, immediately, and obviously the size of it, but immediately you can think that already, because not all of the other raptors hunt together like they do, and they specifically are always in pairs. So very often I see two raptors, I immediately think first and foremost of African hawk eagle, and then I try to myself wrong, by checking that if it's not something else. But then normally, most of the times I'm right. So Spaz Lankov saying, thanks for the great show this afternoon, Ralph. Really enjoyed it. Glad you enjoyed it, Spaz. And hope to see you back watching as you are. Fantastic. And as per usual, it's been a completely different day. Nothing ever stays the same. The only constant is change, and you never know what to expect. So, just about at the end of the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Live at the Waterhole. We'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. I won't be. I'll be back next week. But I hope you all enjoyed today's show and the discussions and everything else, and the wildlife especially. I think the highlight for me once again was 1 ton. I think he's stolen the show 2 days in a row. Yesterday we had a leopard as well, though. But I don't think you can get much better than 1 ton. That is for sure. So thanks for joining us, everybody. And, of course, thanks to the wildlife for being the stars. And to the whole WildEarth team for making this all happen. You guys rock. So that's it from me for now, folks. Give it horns. Bush greetings. Cheers.